May 19th, 1983, just another slow night in Mackenzie Willamette Hospital in Springfield. Or so the night shift workers thought when they clocked in, but those hopes quickly got interrupted by frantic honking out front. Staff suddenly had their hands full with two children bleeding out rapidly from gunshot wounds. Cheryl bled out on the way to the hospital. The other two, Christie and Danny, were rushed to the ER, and local police got informed about the potential gunman on the loose. Hi, I'm CJ. I hate my mother, but I do like me some true crime, so I combined the two into a podcast, the one you're listening to right now. The police arrived at the hospital to take statement from the only conscious witness, Elizabeth Diane Downs, the mother and the driver. She has been shot as well, but nowhere as severe as her kids. She was shot once in her left arm and ended up with only a cast. Later that day, Diane took her kids to see her friend's place. I think she had a horse or something. You couldn't be bothered with these kind of details, I'm sorry. Anyway, they left the farm quite late and took a scenic road home, like back roads. After a full day of activities, the kids were dozing off and barely registered the moment the car stopped. On the side of the road stood an ugly yellow car and someone flagging them down. Assuming they needed help, Diane went into a park, turned off the ignition, and left the car. And as soon as she did that, there was a gun pointed in her face. Bushy-haired stranger behind it demanded the car keys. "You gotta be kidding me," Diane bristled. At first she couldn't even grasp that it was really happening to her. "I'm not giving you more car keys." Obviously she wasn't going to just give them to him, he would take them himself. He pushes past her towards the car and reaches in. That was when he noticed the children, and without hesitation, he started shooting. Manages a few shots before Diane wrestled him away. She feigned throwing her keys away, and when he instinctively turned towards them to look for them, she hopped into the car and sped away. She sped away so fast the force closed the driver's side of the door. On her way to the hospital, she realized she was shot herself during that struggle. She hadn't really noticed before, but she had like a beach towel laying around, so she wrapped it up to stop the bleeding. And that was basically all Diane could give. There wasn't much to go on to make a composite sketch of the suspect. Medium height, white male, bushy hair. That was all Diane could give them. Regardlessly, the police was on the lookout. I imagine that doctors and police are used to seeing people at low points, when they are vulnerable, when they lose a loved one. That's why both the hospital staff and the responding officers exchanged meaningful looks of doubt when listening to Diane's monotone cold recounting of events. She didn't act like someone who just lost her child, with the remaining two fighting for their lives. And when she mentioned that it was a new car that just got covered in blood, and how she hoped there was no bullet holes in it, police decided to take a closer look at the mother herself. Let's just stick our fingers in some plot holes and wiggle them a bit, okay? First off, who in their right mind stops in the middle of nowhere with their kids in the car and leaves the car to talk to a stranger? At night. Also, let's not forget that they were taking a scenic road. Three sleeping kids, scenic road, after dark. Yeah, there was probably a lot to sightsee. What else? More about the crime scene itself. There was no tire tracks other than Diane's, indicating that there was another car at all. Gunpowder should be found on the outside of the car, considering there was supposed to be struggle in front of it, when the attacker, the gunman, reached into the car through the driver's side window, so there should be some gunpowder residue there, anything, but gunpowder could be only found inside. There is also the blood splatters. If the kids were shot in the car, the blood should also be only limited to the inside of the car. But there was a blood splatter on the passenger side door outside the car, which Diane pointed out was because they were, when they arrived at the hospital, they were dragging them out of the car, the kids, so that was when this blood splatter came from. But according to investigators, this kind of splatter could only occur if someone has attempted to run away from the car, was shot outside, and then dragged back in. Moreover, when the doctors took a look at Cheryl to examine the body because she was the deceased one. They pointed out that Cher's blood has already started congealing by the time she was brought to the hospital, and this didn't match up with the short distance from the crime scene Diana had to cover. If she really rushed them to the hospital like she said she did, the blood loss would be less severe. Further into the investigation, a witness came forward testifying that he drove behind Diana and she was going so slow he had to pass her by. She was going about 5 miles per hour or 8 kilometers. The description of the car and the hours where Diane would be on the road were matching up, so this couldn't be any other car, only hers. It was most likely Diane was dragging to drive, so the chances of saving her kids were smaller. Actually, when the doctors updated her or on her kids on their, because they were trying to save them, there was a severe blood loss, they weren't even sure if they were gonna make it. Doctors tell Diane that they stabilized Christie, she's stable, and Diane said that they should put her off support because she's gonna be brain dead anyway. Doctors, of course, were very surprised at that request and refused because it was too early to tell. And when they told her that Danny was also stable but paralyzed from the waist down because the bullet hit his spine, she was surprised that it didn't shot his heart. That, like, what? You aimed higher, didn't you, Diane? The towel she had wrapped around her arm, and her left arm. She claims she used it to stanch the bleeding. It was like just a makeshift thing. She was driving very fast, okay? She was driving, she was wrapping her hand, and I think she was talking also about closing the window at the same time, all of it. So yeah, a lot of hands there needed. Anyway, looking closer at this beach towel, the forensics team concluded that the only way the bloodstains would form the way they did would be if the towel was wrapped in a perfect triangle. It would mean she would have to either have it wrapped like this before, ahead of time, or take her time to fold it really nicely in a makeshift bandage. And let's talk about the guy. Okay, let's say you're trying to carjack a car, okay? You didn't follow that car, you don't know there are kids in the car. And that guy knew to reach in and shoot at the kids. That's the first thing. Second, you're a guy. You can overpower a woman usually, okay? Just don't beat me. Usually. And you could just shoot the woman and take the car. You can... These are 3 kids. You can just throw them out of the car as well. Why would you shoot kids when you can shoot an adult and take the car? Okay? You get my point, right? I know people are stupid, but come on. Just, if you want to carjack, just do it right. And now I'm gonna talk about my favorite part. Interrogations, interviews. Just a pure fucking delight to listen to. In one of the interrogations, you can hear how riled up Diane gets when these holes in her story are brought up. She tries off with multiple different versions of events. Police mentions that usually a perpetrator is someone who knows the victim, so she suddenly says that he addressed her by name. He even knew about her tattoo. She had a tattoo of a rose on her back, if I remember correctly. And later, the gunman morphs into 2 guys in ski masks. These are 3 main versions. That there's a bushy-haired stranger, there's one guy who knew her, and 2 guys in ski masks. And this is a whole thing. She would say that she knows who they are, but I don't know, she's covering for them. She doesn't want to disclose their identity. I don't know why, but she also says that this is because police claims there's 25 minutes of repressed memories that she has to remember the events, because she doesn't remember exactly what happened around the moment from when she was shot. Too much trauma, blah blah blah, yada yada, whatever. So she just says that to explain these multiple versions, she says that she's forwarding tips from people who kept calling her, because when the thing got public, because a kid was shot, three kids were shot, of course it's gonna be on the news. So people called Diane and tell her about any shady individuals in the area around that night, May 19th. And she just forwards it to police to be helpful, you know. And they just note it down, all of it, as another version of events. At least that's what Diane says, that this is just her trying to be helpful, forwarding information from strangers, sometimes even describing her dreams to the police. Because maybe this is a suppressed memory. So we have that, we have Diane's versions, not one version, but like a vague painting of a scene. We have that. We don't have the murder weapon. And the only reliable witness is a traumatized 8-year-old with a stroke. So, further investigation into Diane follows. Police had no doubt, listening to her, that she was involved, but the question was to what extent and what could have been her motive. And like I have already said, listening to Diane is as much a mortifying delight as it is a shit show. She just can't stop talking. I highly recommend you watch some of the interviews with her, as nothing I say will hit as hard as hearing it from Diane herself. The way she responds to audience's reactions to her words on Oprah, the way she jokes and smiles with talking about the night of the shooting when she should be traumatized. You just have to see for yourself how she fixes her hair in the car's rearview mirror before reenacting the crime. How she jokes and laughs while reminiscing what should be a traumatizing event in which she lost a child. Interesting point about that particular reenactment. You can see most of those on YouTube, no problem. And in that particular reenactment, not all of this is, I don't think this clip has a sound, there's only parts of it. In the reenactment recording, there's a moment where she hits her cast against the car and says, "That hurts more," before cutting herself off. And many psychologists believe she was about to say, "That hurt more than when I shot myself." Unfortunately, the police needed more proof to pull the case. They got a search warrant and they got their hand on Diane's diaries. Diane came from a very strict family. I don't think she got very much attention from her parents. So when she became a teenager, as teenager do, she started rebelling. I don't wanna say she became a slut because work girl, but let's just say she liked the attention from men, especially the attention of men who choose her over their girlfriends. Needless to say, she finishes high school, enrolls into a Baptist Bible college in California, and she soon gets expelled for promiscuous behavior, which I'm assuming means whoring around. Well, after being kicked out, she went back to her parents in Arizona, and in November 1973, she ran away to marry her high school sweetheart, Steve Downs. A year later, they had their first daughter, Christie Ann, and after another 2 years, they had Cheryl. But when Diane fell pregnant for the third time, Steve asked her to get an abortion. He just figured that 3 kids would be too much. She gets the abortion, but after seeing some pro-life propaganda, she regrets it. She gives the fetus a name I either don't remember or didn't care. I probably didn't care to put it in my spreadsheet, whatever. It's not important, it's not a child. Anyway, she feels like it was wrong what she did, she regretted it. Anyway, she decides to get pregnant again. But the catch was, Steve got a vasectomy. So when she announces the pregnancy, Steve immediately is like, "Bitch, did you cheat on me?" Diane said it was a miracle baby, but Steve knew she must have cheated. So after a year after Danny was born, in 1980, they had a divorce. Because you see, there was no stopping Diane from getting pregnant. Even the first kid she had, Christie, wasn't consulted with her husband. Just went off pills without informing him. She really liked the attention and special treatment it gave her. Obviously, mothers get asked questions. People offer seats, their place in line. But according to Steve, Diane wasn't a good mother. As soon as she gave birth, the whole attention would shift from her to the newborn baby, and she hated it. Most of the time, Steve was the one caring for them. She especially didn't like the middle child, Cheryl, because she thought she wasn't as cute as herself. And if you remember, Cheryl was the only kid who died from the shooting. I think it was just easier for Diane to pull the trigger on her, because, I don't know, she thought her kid was ugly, that Cheryl wasn't as cute as Christie. Okay, so we have three kids. You think Diane is done here? No, she's not. She found a loophole, and in my opinion, she found this loophole way too late. We probably wouldn't be talking about it if she thought of this earlier. And that loophole was surrogacy. She could have her special treatment and not be bothered by a child. So she went to a clinic, filled out all the forms, took the needed tests, and she theoretically was unfit for a surrogate because of her mental assessment. She was diagnosed with narcissistic and antisocial personality disorders. She was deemed psychotic, but yet she could accept it. And in 1982, 3 years after Danny, she gave birth to a baby girl for another couple. Diaries also shed some light on Diane's affairs. As I've mentioned, she liked men's attention, and she said in one of her interviews she had 10 lovers in the span of 2 years, which, according to her, is not that much. It sounds much to me, but I am asexual, so what would I know? And let's not forget that less than half of them was married. Well, her newest and most intense obsession was a man named Robert Knickerbocker, and I'm sorry if I say it wrong. This is a very wild surname, okay? In some sources you might see him as Liu, which was a fake name used in the book Small Sacrifices, and it came out around the time of the investigation, based on all the interrogations, confessions and stuff. There's actually a movie also based on it. Anyway, Diane was madly in love with Robert and believed they were meant to be together, like soulmates. There was one problem though, and no, it wasn't Robert's wife. Based on her track record, Diane was positive he would get divorced for her. The real obstacle were her kids. Robert wasn't interested in being a father. He got a vasectomy, and his wife was also okay with not having kids. And here, that's it, that's all. If the possible motive, as Diane believed her kids were the only thing standing between her happy life with Robert Knickerbocker. The plan must have formed in Diane's head around a month before the shooting. How do we know that? How are we able to put a fucking date on the day she started on the plan? Because it was planned. The entries in Diane's journal suddenly changed from April 20th. Up until then, it was Robert this, Robert that, poems about their love, their soulmates, he's gonna divorce his wife, they're gonna be together, they're gonna be happy. But then, the entries shifted focus to the children. The change was so jarring. She hasn't written much about her kids before, and now she was dedicating the whole entries to them, and immediately investigators recognized it as what it was: Diane's attempts at coming off as a loving mother. She called them the Fourth Musketeers, a title you can hear her using in the interviews. They were a team, 4 musketeers. So how could she be the killer? On top of these entries, a certain statue found in her apartment got a whole new meaning. 3 days before the shooting, Diane gifted her kids a gold unicorn statue. It was supposed to be a symbol of love and companionship, but now, in the light of the events, it looked more like a memorial for her soon-to-be dead children. Okay, to her ex-husband and her lover. What Knickerbocker had to say about his affair with Diane? He said that he never intended to leave his wife for her. He told Diane time and time again it was purely physical, and he had no feelings for her. As a matter of fact, he was relieved when she moved cities, because her behavior became alarming to the point when he feared she could go as far and hurt his wife. By the way, he came clear about all of this affair to his wife, and they stayed together. So she was there for the confessions and stuff. Also, both Steve and Knickerbocker stated that Diane did own a .22 caliber gun of the same type used in the shooting. Of course, Diane earlier denied it, admitting to owning 2 other guns, but hadn't mentioned that one. And from what I've gathered, I think she took it from Steve, that it used to be his gun, and I don't know if she borrowed it or downright stolen it. And robber saw it in the trunk of her car, so they both could confirm she was at some point in possession of a 22 caliber gun. The gun itself was never found, but gun casings were found in Diane's possession, and they matched the bullet casings found at the crime scene. The scratches on those casings prove that they were from the same gun, because the markings were identical. It's like kind of like a fingerprint, but for bullets. Evidence piled up, and in 1984 the trial began. But Diane wasn't done being Diane yet, and she showed up a good few months pregnant. And I quote, "I just went and got pregnant because I felt lonely. You can't replace the children, but you can reflect the effect they give you. Children are so easy to conceive." And again, you have to hear it from Diane's mouth. It's just, chills. Maybe she thought that she'd be treated better as a pregnant woman, that they wouldn't put her in jail when she was, with a belly, with a child. She thought wrong, because the public was already against her after the interviews and, how cold she was, how she was flat. And now seeing her pregnant on trial for shooting her kids was just disturbing to the public. That just proved that she didn't really care about her kids, about any kids' lives. But the final nail to the coffin for Diane, though, was Christie. When her mother visited her soon after she regained consciousness, Christie's heart rate spiked in fear. The doctors, physicians around her observed that, and it proved that she could be a valuable witness. So for 9 months, she was under the care of physicians and psychologists to get her back into shape after the stroke and the trauma. Her therapist let her write what happened on a piece of paper, put it in the envelope, and burn it. They repeated it over and over again until Christie was ready for others to read it, and then she was ready to say it out loud in the court. How her mom stopped the car, left it, got something out of the trunk of the car, and then shot them, one by one, and then shot her arm. And another trial highlight, one that inspired the title of today's episode. This song, "Hungry Like a Wolf" by Duran Duran. Diane had this on the loop in her car on a cassette. From what I gathered, it was like a self-looping thing that it was playing over and over and over. So this was playing during the shooting. So the song was played in court, and what Diane did, she tapped her hand, she danced in her seat, just enjoying the tune. The song that she murdered her kids to. Can you imagine being traumatized because you and your siblings were shot, and now you can't hear a certain song because you were shot to it? Diane was sentenced to life in prison plus 50 years. In the meantime, of course, she gave birth to another girl. She named the kid Amy Elizabeth, but she was renamed to Rebecca and taken by adoptive family. But Diane still wasn't done being Diane. 3 years into her sentence, she climbed the prison walls, draped her jacket over a barbed wire, and hid under one of the cars in the parking lot until it got dark and safe to just walk off. Just like that, nearly 2-week-long statewide manhunt began. The kids, who were by the way adopted by the prosecutor and his wife, got a 24/7 police car staked outside because they feared Diane might want to end the job or, get revenge on Christie, who testified against her. But no, she was found 10 days later, a few blocks away from the prison, with her ex-cellmate's husband. Apparently, when the girls talked, she told Diane that he lived close by. He moved to, visit his wife. Diane has drawn a map. I think they found it in her cell somewhere, and based on that, they found her. I kinda sounds for me like she was going to get pregnant once again, but several times she claims that she knows her cycle, and she used the knowledge of her body, to get pregnant before. So, and she didn't. I mean, as far as we know. So I don't know what was that about. She of course claims that she has escaped to look for the real killer. Yes, she's still going with that narrative. I can't imagine that the bushy-haired stranger would be in another man's bed. So far, Diane has been denied parole 3 times, in 2008, 2010, and the latest one in 2020. I think 2020 parole hearing is surfacing right now on YouTube. You can find it. I couldn't be bothered because I couldn't be bothered. It's too long. My brain can't handle more of Diane's bullshit, basically. I mean, if you want to give yourself a headache, you can listen to the hearing from 2010. Diane goes in circles about who said what to whom, and you know that this is a version who was told to this guy, and this guy told me. I don't know what was true. You know, just being an insane, delusional woman. She, of course, like I said, claims her innocence to this day. Her father believes her. I mean, kudos to him, being, supportive dad, I guess. There are many theories around the internet. I've even stumbled upon a whole website on it that Diane might be innocent. It's based mostly on the limited amount of evidence, like the physical evidence, I believe that Christie was coached by the prosecution to testify against her mother, and the general conspiracy to make Diane look bad in the media, like making a whole movie about her case. But for me, just listening to Diane talk and seeing her facial expressions, just seeing her being her, is enough to believe that she's guilty. Diane's kids kept low profile. I mean, I completely understand them. Not much is known about their lives. Like I've mentioned, Christie and Danny were adopted by the prosecution. Christie has a speech handicap, and she's a mother of two kids. One of them she has named Cheryl after her deceased sister. Danny is paralyzed from the waist down, and apparently he's a computer geek. And that's basically all we know about them. The more vocal of Diane's children is Rebecca Becky Babcock, the youngest one, the one born after the trial. She found out her real mother identity by tricking one of her babysitters into telling her. She found out, and I think she read Small Sacrifices, and she wasn't really happy to find out that that was where he came from. And after that she had a few rough years. She dropped out, got pregnant as a teenager, drug slipping around, ended up in a shelter. But finally she got back on her feet, she accepted the truth, she appeared on Oprah and a few other interviews to talk about her situation, and she's probably the only one of the kids to reach out to Diane. Becky gave her second kid up for adoption, and he felt kind of lost after that, and she thought she could connect with her birth mother, because she was also given away as a child. They exchanged a few letters. I know Diane joked about their chin, that she passed it on to her. But Diane soon became Diane. Her tone soured. Becky dropped the count, realizing her biological mother wasn't worth of her time. She was just a monster. An insane fucking woman. And that's it for this case. Most of the material came from interviews with Diane, as well as the movie Small Sacrifices, based on the book by Anne Rule. I think Farrah Fawcett did a good job in portraying Diane in this movie. If you want to see Diane glowing at the audience's reactions to her words, watch her interview on Oprah. If you want to see the delusional, self-centered woman, watch the interview with Annie Yeager. Honestly, watch a lot of interviews. If you just like this kind of stuff, it is really good. Thank you for listening to this episode of sMOTHERed. Tell your friends I have a podcast, tell your mom I don't trust her, and don't forget to brush your teeth with mint paste. Spiders hate mint. And the Yo Mama joke for today is, your mama's so stupid she says she loves you while misgendering you in the same sentence.